Okay, welcome everyone to the Webdelics Live AMA. This is our monthly series sponsored by Webdelics. I'm Steve Elfrink, Webdelics subject matter expert. There we go. It's a mouthful. And today we're going to be talking with Richie Ogulnick on his 33 years and 750 sessions with Ibogaine. And some quick housekeeping before we dive in. So this is an AMA, Ask Me Anything. So this is questions from folks out there on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We received some questions already from folks, and so feel free to add more to these questions, comments, anything you want us to cover. And then one note also, there's a QR code up in the upper right-hand corner. And that if you scan that will take us or take you to our website, hopefully not us. And what we encourage there is sign up for our newsletter that goes out every Thursday. No other spam or anything else from us, but just a newsletter that goes out every Thursday. And it has always our upcoming AMAs. So highly recommend that. And then a little deeper dive into me before we go on to our esteemed guest and co-host, Mike. So I'm a psycholytic somatic therapist also, besides subject matter expert. So I have a full-time practice in Southern Oregon. Working primarily in a somatic approach, work a lot with ketamine. And my focus is primarily trauma, PTSD, folks with dissociation, also folks who have been destabilized from psychedelics. And I've been cruising these edges of consciousness for about 40 years, exploring various medicines and just on a mission to help folks and educate folks. And that's what the whole purpose of these AMAs is, basically getting that information out through your questions. And so tonight we've got Mike Mamola joining us as a co-host, and Mike is someone who pops in and here and there for these AMAs to offer his wisdom, his background, experience also in this world. And then official bio for Mike, he currently serves as general counsel to Momentous LLC, which is a single family office which serves the founding family of Omani and Jeannie Carson. He also serves as general counsel to Omnia.life, a Carson-led private network of conscious leaders. He is a member of the Psychedelics Bar Association and a strong advocate for the benefits of psychedelics. So welcome, Mike. And then we have our wonderful guest, Richie, someone I've known since about 1992, I think. In the way back days, I think actually I had hair back then. So I'm very excited about this, actually, to have Richie on board. But so here's more about Richie. Richie Ogulnick is one of the longest active Ibogaine providers in the world. A former jeweler from New York, he first heard about Ibogaine in 1989. And in 1993, he traveled to Cameroon and brought back his first supply. Over the next 15 plus years, he personally guided around 750 Ibogaine sessions, and later referred nearly 1,000 more people to other providers, while training doctors and former addicts who went on to open Ibogaine centers around the world. Today, through his practice, I Begin Again, he focuses on highly personalized therapeutic and psychospiritual sessions, with an emphasis on intention, safety, and long-term integration. So please welcome Richie Ogulnick to our AMA tonight.
Thank you.
It's an honor to have you.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, one of the OGs in the Ibogaine world. So yeah, really, yeah, we're going to just kind of dive in. We've got some really good questions, some basic ones to kind of start out.
Okay.
The way this is going to work, folks out there, we're going to pop up a question, and then Richie's going to be answering. Mike might add, I might add, but it's going to be, the way I always frame it, three guys talking about these substances.
Sounds good.
So our first question, we always kind of start basic for folks, but what is Ibogaine?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, Ibogaine. Okay, Ibogaine is an alkaloid, one of the 13 alkaloids located in the shrub called Tabernaty iboga. And it's one of the 3 or 4 active alkaloids that are located in the plant, the psychoactive alkaloids. There's another alkaloid located in the plant, which is actually more potent than Ibogaine, but it's in such small quantities in the plant that it's very difficult to work with. It's very difficult to isolate and so on. Although I do have a friend who's a chemist who did, and it was quite a unique experience. So that's what Ibogaine is.
Mm-hmm.
And so can I ask a question, Richie, or maybe add to that just to
Yeah.
help people in the audience? I think with regard to that, to Ibogaine being kind of the primary alkaloid that's extracted and used from Iboga, that being the distinction, I think a lot of people use the terms improperly, interchangeably, right? With Iboga or Ibogaine. We're talking about Ibogaine being that one alkaloid out of them. And is it true that it's the Ibogaine alkaloid that has the addiction interruption and withdrawal elimination properties, and that's why
Right.
it's so
Right.
important?
Yes.
So now, yeah.
The miracle component to Ibogaine is that it could literally bring a person into a pre-addictive state. They could be using 3 grams of heroin, and 36 hours later, not only have they not gone through any of the symptoms, the agony of withdrawal, but there's a window of time, a few month window, where the craving is eliminated as well for most people. And that really applies a good 90 to 100% of the people. However, that doesn't mean that it's a cure. And that doesn't mean that the people don't remain clean after the 36 hours, because they're still carrying a lot of the baggage that brought them to the addictive situation in the first place. And that's why it's so important to include the therapy, the integration work after the session.
Yeah, I think, the integration thing is huge. And I think also I think especially in the addict world, or I mean, for any of us, if you're, coming from addict and you're from Topeka, Kansas, and you go to, Costa Rica, do your Ibogaine session, you go back to Topeka with your same using friends in that same environment, kind of a recipe for disaster.
Right.
And
So
I have another one. Can either Steve, maybe, or Richie, can either of you, just for the benefit of the audience, elaborate on integration? I think we all understand. The three of us know what it is, but what is it? What when people say integration, what are we talking about?
Yeah. Let me just make a point to Steve's comment. It's there's what I've noticed through the years is that addiction most often has to do with abandonment from the same-sex parent. Probably 65% of the people that call me have that issue when it comes to addiction. When it comes to opioids, if a person's in their 40s and 50s and they already have a support system, a couple of kids on the way to college, a mortgage, a job that they like, relatively speaking, then they have a really good chance with some integration work of staying clean after an Ibogaine treatment. But if they're in their 20s and 30s and they live in their parents' basement and they go back to Dodge, invariably a person in their 20s and early 30s is going to relapse. So having said that, when it comes to integration, integration is like when a person comes out of an Ibogaine session. For example, there was one woman, a therapist, who told me months after she did her session that what I really got out of it was that 40% of the amount of thoughts that run through my mind hourly are completely gone. And I can be so present with my clients. So what I love to see during the integration work is that 6 months after they've done their session, it feels to them like they just did it 2 or 3 weeks before, because they've maintained that sense of that quietude and that sense of stability. which comes from the Ibogaine session. Iboga is very grounding. It's very different than other psychedelics and psychoactives.
Yeah, I think one thing that's also interesting about Ibogaine or Iboga, I don't know which one we want to stick with for this, but I'm going to go with Ibogaine for now since that's what we have on the banner. But one thing also with integration, that Ibogaine has one of the longest windows of neuroplasticity and hanging out in the system, mainly with noribogaine.
Right.
We've got about a 3-month window of
That's
this
right.
openness, which is
right. It's
by
like
far
being introduced to a new language. It's like the process really begins after the Ibogaine session, and it's like people over a period of days, weeks, and months. Because if they let go of just a few percent of defining themselves falsely, if they go deep and they explore, especially during that second 25 to 35 hour self-reflective stage, if they come out of it having let go of a few percent of the false way in which they define themselves, 6 months down the road, they can be in a completely different place in their lives.
Yes.
And that quite often happens. And it's not necessarily the actual experience itself. Because, for example, I had this one woman who didn't experience anything at all. And 17 days after, she had the most frustrating experience because she didn't experience what she wanted to experience, which was the pictorials, the lights, and all the visuals. But she dipped into a unicity state of consciousness where she was literally witnessing her sleep for 10 months. And she was accomplishing 4 times as much with 1/4 of the amount of energy because she was just so free. And she felt so wonderful. And the reason why she didn't experience anything was because what she wanted to experience was something that she didn't need to experience. She actually experienced the opposite. And it was, she didn't allow herself in her lifetime to experience a level of frustration until she experienced the Ibogaine. And she burned through that level of frustration and came out the other side and just had this very powerful integration experience. Whereas there was another woman, an English professor, who spent 16 and a half hours in a visionary condition, and she typewrote 34 single-space pages of describing her visions. And her experience, her after integration time was a lot more subtle and not as profoundly effective as the person that didn't experience anything. So I realized early on that I have to let go of people receiving what they want and just accept the feasibility that people are getting what they need.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to add a personal note of, for me, even the integration could happen. Like I said, my last Ibogaine session was 2016, and it was like 9 years later where something I got from that session around just be finally sunk in, where I was like, oh, that's what they meant, or he meant. But it took 9 years of just life and processing for it to fully land. So it's for me, Ibogaine has always been the gift that keeps giving. And yes, but back to the integration question, or a little tangent on that. I mean, for all these medicines, the most important thing is the integration. And I think you alluded to that, Richie, and I just want to really emphatically state that the session is, a small percentage of the work. It's what do you do with the information? Do you remain open to listen to what's coming out?
Yeah.
Richie, anything else? I know, integration is a huge part of, how you work with folks. And how long does that integration window typically last?
Anywhere between a couple of weeks and 2.5 years. It really depends on the individual and
Yeah.
our relationship. But what I notice is as important as the integration is the intentional conversations that we have for weeks and weeks prior to the session. Having a person helping them hone in on two specific themes, intentions that they want to explore and work through. I notice, because it's only been 7 years since I've been working that way, and people are going much deeper because they've already made quite a pilgrimage within before they even do the journey.
Mm-hmm. I think, and a lot of times the journey starts before the journey.
Oh, it very often does. Time collapses, especially during the intentional conversations that we have. And invariably, these conversations almost always have to do with these interconnecting threads between the reason why they're choosing these two specific intentions and their relationship with mom and dad and siblings and life experiences. So there's a lot to discuss during the weeks before.
Yes. I think it all boils down to, I'm always a fan of the energy in, energy out, to like put some energy into, before any psychedelic session.
Yes, very
do some
good.
work, do your homework, do your personal
Yeah.
work, and start the dive in. And the more you put in ahead of time, you're going to, get it on the back end fourfold or 100-fold. So we should, let's pop to another question here. We kind of started touching on this a little bit, but this is the difference between Iboga and Ibogaine. And then also,
Okay.
there's someone else popped in a question about total alkaloid. And what do you recommend, Richie?
Yeah, why don't I give a really quick range of all the different medicines. One is the root bark. The root bark is great for microdosing. The root bark has between 5 and 8 or 9% Ibogaine. So when providers utilize the root bark, people ingest spoonfuls and spoonfuls, and almost always people do a lot of purging, then they need to ingest more. And so it's a gradual, cumulative process in terms of absorbing the amount of Ibogaine from the root bark, from Tabernacle Iboga, to have that deep self-reflective stage. Then
And that's Iboga.
there's,
That's Iboga. Sorry to cut you off, Richie. And that's
yeah,
Iboga.
that's Iboga.
That's when we talk
exactly.
about people doing the root bark.
Right.
It's Iboga. Yeah.
Now, there's something called total alkaloid, which is an extraction, and it constitutes about 37.5 to 45 or so percent Ibogaine, but then it has a representation of all the other alkaloids located in the plant. So people like to use the word Iboga when they're talking about total alkaloid extraction, because it is a full spectrum representation of the whole plant. And then you've got something called PTA, or purified total alkaloid, which is a representation of the active alkaloids, but not the passive ones that are located in the plant. So you've got 3 active alkaloids. One's Ibogaine, one's ibogaline, and then there's a third one. And then you've got the isolated Ibogaine hydrochloride, which is about 95% Ibogaine. It's the only alkaloid located in Ibogaine, hydrochloride. And that's really a terrific medicine for the addiction interruption. The TA and the root bark are wonderful medicines to work with when you're doing psychospiritual and therapeutic work, because, in my opinion, people can access their intentions more clearly and more completely utilizing the TA and the root bark, whereas with Ibogaine hydrochloride, it's really great for the addiction interruption to overwhelm the symptoms of withdrawal, to add the neural ibogaine to the metabolites, and to work. Then there's another medicine which doesn't come from Tabernacle Iboga, but it's 99.5% pure ibogaine from a tree that grows all over the world called wakanga. And that's really good for addiction interruption as well, especially because it's so sustainable and it doesn't take away from the West African tribes in terms of their use of it for psychospiritual intentions.
Very comprehensive. Thank you for that. Then I want one rewind question around microdosing. So root bark is the recommended microdosing material for Ibogaine or Iboga?
TA as well. Yeah.
Okay. And does that follow a typical like Fadiman protocol, like with LSD, where a day on, 2 days off, day on?
It depends on the individual. Some people, like Parkinson's patients, can do it every day for months and months and months at a very modest amount. They don't feel it, but they have their symptoms are ameliorated, the Parkinson's symptoms. Other people do 3 days on and 2 days off, and some people do 100 milligrams of root bark. Other people do 1,000 milligrams. It's just such a wide range of effect and sensitivity that people have.
Okay, fascinating. So let's pop in our next question here. Let's see, what's this one? Were you trained by a Bwiti elder? So I think first explain what a Bwiti elder is, and then if you want to dive into how you kind of got into this.
A Bwiti elder is people that are the shamans in West Central Africa. Ibogaine was actually brought from the eastern part of Africa, near or in the Rift Valley, where anthropologists and paleontologists say that human evolution began. Well, that's where Iboga has its origins. And then the Pygmy tribes, the hunter-gatherers, brought it to West Central Africa maybe 350 or so, 100 years ago. And there are tribes that use it as their religious rite of passage, initiatory tool. You know, like peyote, like the American Indians use.
So if someone's a member of a Bwiti tribe, part of their culture is Iboga, then? Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And then let's go back to the main question. Were you, like, for your humble beginnings, were you trained by a Bwiti person? Or how did you get into this, Richie?
Yeah, my humble beginnings, and they were quite humble, was that when I heard about Ibogaine, and I was always looking for something to do as an end in itself, not as a means to an end. I always surrounded myself with friends who loved what they did, irrespective of whether they were making money at it or not. They had to do it. Whether they were artists or therapists, acupuncturists, they just had to do it. But I was making my jewelry, and I liked what I did, but it wasn't a passion. It wasn't right livelihood, if you will, dharma. And when I heard about Ibogaine, and I heard that it was costing people thousands of dollars in the Netherlands to do a session in hotel rooms, I didn't understand why I couldn't go to southern Cameroon and have the pygmies look through me and around me and recognize if I was the harborer to Ibogaine for the West or not. And I would pick up maybe 40,000 doses for 3 cents each and go to Needle Park in Europe, and 10,000 people would be dosed, and 1/4 of them would show up for their free needles. A week later, I would call CNN, and that would be the end of my messianic complex. I really had that in mind. That's how naive I was. And so it took me about 3 years to gather enough, to gather a sleeping bag, a mosquito net, and a few $1,000s, and enough courage to fly over to Cameroon. I lost the video. Okay. The
We lost you, Richie.
Okay, I'm back. Yeah. So the night before I had a flight to Cameroon, to Yaoundé, the capital of Cameroon, I was at a naturopathic physician's apartment in Manhattan with a half a dozen other doctors and two located on the phone from Arizona. And they were trying to figure out, like, why do you have to go to Africa? Why can't we find? So they found a plant that was in somebody's backyard in Jamaica. And they said, why don't you just fly over to Jamaica and hop the fence and grab some seeds and grow it? I said, no, that doesn't feel right either. And I was, nervous about going. But then this one naturopath took me aside and he said, look, don't take it so seriously. Just relax, take the flight. So I flew over there. I didn't know where to go in southern Cameroon. And they spoke French, and I don't speak French. So I went to a burnt out university where there was about 4,000 kids walking around without books. And the professors, I heard, hadn't been paid for a few months. So I walked. Am I out of commission again? Okay.
Oh, we lost your video.
Can you hear me when I beep out?
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you, but don't see you.
I can't hear you. Well, that's too bad.
Uh-oh.
Huh.
Let's give it a second. Richie, maybe if you sign off and
Can't hear
log
me,
back
huh?
in.
You can't. I
Can't
don't think
hear
you
me?
can't hear us.
Can't
We
hear us
can't.
at all. Okay. Well, hopefully he comes back and continues the story, because I've been in this space now for almost a decade, and Richie's story is absolutely one of the
Hello?
most incredible stories I've heard
Hello?
when it comes to this.
We can hear you saying hello. Can you hear us? I hear the cookies. Cookies? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I can't hear you at all.
We lost you?
Can you hear me when I speak? You
Can
can.
you see us? I don't know if you
Okay.
can see us.
Well, I can't hear you guys, but I'll continue talking, I guess.
In true
So-
Richie fashion.
It's very strange. So I went to the organic chemistry department, knocked on the door. A couple of guys were playing cards, and they said, "You're interested in Ibogaine? Come back tomorrow. I think there'll be somebody to help you." So I went back to my hotel, and I came back the next day. I knock on the door, and this 6'5", 300-pound guy answers the door, and I said, "Do you know anything about Ibogaine?" He said, "Ibogaine? Where are you from? The Bronx?" He said, "God will strike me down if I don't work with you. I'm the only chemist on the continent of Africa that just spent the last year and a half learning how to extract Ibogaine from the root bark, from Tabernacle Iboga." And he carries me to a 150-year-old wooden chest. He takes out a vial of white powder. It says Ibogaine, 13 grams of HCl, Ibogaine, hydrochloride. And I said to him, "So can I have it?" And he said, "Well, I'll sell it to you for $1,000 a gram." I said, "Well, I only have a few $1,000s in my pocket." He said, "That's okay, you'll come back." So he gave me the 13 grams, and I had routed out a hole in the heel of my shoe previous to flying over to Africa, and I put it into my shoe, and I was carrying some seeds that it gave me in my hand. And a couple of days later, as I was walking in the heat, in 96-degree weather in downtown Yaoundé, being the only, white person in the entire city, literally, that I could see, I was walking on the street with the cars, because there was a half a dozen people, guys, following me. And I thought to myself, the seeds, and I thought to myself that Ibogaine wants to be seen through the eyes of not only people overlooking the Atlantic Ocean, but people looking over the Pacific Ocean as well. And it's a universal plant, and that's the only initiation that I had. The day that I came back from Africa was literally the day that a dear friend of mine, a therapist, whose client dropped an out-of-print chapter from the book The Healing Journey in her lap, and she, my friend, didn't tell anyone that I was coming back with Ibogaine. And this was a 66-year-old Englishman, a client of my friend's, with a facial tic, and the name of the chapter was Ibogaine, Fantasy and Reality, and it documented 40 or 50 directive lower dose Ibogaine sessions with clients of his. The name of the person, the therapist who wrote the book, was Claudio Naranjo, a Chilean therapist, who later became very interested in the Enneagram and moved to San Francisco. And so it was those protocols that Naranjo documented with his clients that a few of us, over a period of 2 or 3 years, began to establish the way in which we can share Iboga and Ibogaine with people therapeutically and psychospiritually. We had some information as to how to work with addiction interruption, which is a completely different protocol, and that's how I was introduced to Ibogaine.
That is quite an introduction, quite a story. I think it would make a good movie.
Questions for me, because I don't hear a thing.
Okay. Okay, see that one?
Okay.
Oh,
I'll
yeah. Do you want to
sign off and
Yeah, why don't we try that?
come back?
Yes. So we're going to let Richie try to sign off, sign back in, see if that fixes the technical glitch. One of my greater mottos that I've come up with, well, I don't think I came up with this, is technology is great with a long pause when it works.
Longer pause sometimes
A very
rather
long
than others,
pause.
right?
Yes.
Steve, do you want to talk about this a little bit, the question that's up, and while we wait for Richie, do you
Sure.
want to let him answer, or happy
Yeah,
to-
I can, while we're waiting for Richie, how is it different from other psychedelics? That's
I just lost your audio, Steve.
Lost my audio? No.
Cannot hear you.
I can hear you. Jeez. Let's see.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Might be on your end, Mike. Richie, you're back.
Guess not.
There we go. I can hear Richie.
You can't hear
Guess
me?
not. I could
Test 1, 2.
I could shut the phone off and try that.
I can see and hear Richie. I cannot hear Steve. This is amazing. Something
How is it
energetically
different
has
from
happened.
other psychedelics? Should I get into that? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's the great granddaddy of psychoactives. It's the longest acting on the planet that we know of. No, I can't hear you.
No one can hear me. Okay.
Steve, I don't know if you can hear us, but
Can
I cannot hear Steve.
you hear me when I talk? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want me to continue?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Go.
There's really nothing like it, but every psychedelic has its energetic and it has its healing capacity. They all oscillate on different vibrational levels and they all have their very unique qualities.
Okay.
Can either of you hear me when I speak? Yeah. Richie, can you hear me? So Steve can hear me, but Richie can't. I can hear Richie, but not Steve. This is amazing.
Well,
And I could just tell you from
Ibogaine, Iboga really allows a person to access a profoundly deep psychological, psychospiritual, insightful experience. It's this 25 to 35 hour deep self-reflective stage where you're basically under the covers with your eyes closed in a self-reflective condition and contingent upon your willingness. For example,
Which one?
and
now I have you. There he is.
she put her house in order. She let go of her office, and as if she was going to physically die, she knew she wasn't, but she wanted to create as discontinuous a break with the past as possible. And she wanted to have a life transformative experience. And Iboga will not show
Here's
you
what I-
anything that you're not willing to look at. But if you're willing to look at all the different aspects of how we falsely define ourselves as a separate being, you're going to see and explore a lot of your false definitions. So it's a very deep, profound, very profound experience if you're willing to really go deep. If you're not, like for example, there's a 25-year-old boy who's been addicted to heroin for 8 years, and the last thing he wants to do is look inside. So he'll be thrown into a pre-addictive state 36 hours after his treatment. He will have not explored anything of his process as to why he became addicted in the first place, because he has no willingness to look. The other thing about Iboga is that it's not an emotional experience. Usually there's more of a witness component. It's more of a mental experience where the witness is very, very strong. And so you get to, a movie screen appears and you get to see pictorial gestalts and these archetypal vignettes and all the representations of the different intentions that you're choosing to explore and work through. And it's arduous in that if you have a willingness to go deep, then there's a lot of hard work that you'll be accomplishing. Yeah. Ibogaine is dangerous, especially when it comes to the addiction interruption treatments. It's really imperative that everyone who receives an Iboga or an Ibogaine session receive an EKG. And if those couple of red flags are not found, then it's intrinsically safe. But people have died because they didn't do an EKG beforehand, or they self-medicated, or they weren't truthful with the providers that are working with them for addiction interruption. The dangerous aspect of this comes particularly with addiction interruption work.
Okay.
The amount of Ibogaine Iboga that I share is it's just not necessary to give big doses. More is not necessarily better, and that's what most Ibogaine providers throughout the world have discovered through the years. But it took some couple of decades to realize that.
Can you still not hear me, Richie? Oh, did we lose you?
I'm at a loss.
Richie, so you can't hear me. Do you see that recent question? You probably can't see the question.
There are no typical outcomes. Everyone's so individual. Everyone's so different. The profound sense of quietude, the sense of people's ability to experience presence more deeply. Some people come out of it confused because they're so, this having a feeling of like this ever proliferating simplicity in their lives, and they're much more relaxed, and their minds aren't filled up with content nearly as much as before. And so it takes some adjusting to become acclimated to this new sense of self. And that's what the integration work is all about. Sure. Ibogaine has a plant spirit as well as ayahuasca and San Pedro and psilocybin. Not LSD though. Synthetics don't have spirits. They plow through consciousness and basically say, you're going to look at this whether you like it or not, because I'm not creating a symbiotic relationship with you, but plant spirits do. There's more and more sustainable farms that are emerging in Guyana and Brazil. So I think it's going to be fine. There's going to be more and more growing in this hemisphere. Mike, do you want to take that one?
Sure, happy to. Can you hear me? All right. Yeah, so the initiatives, there are a lot of things happening. As we all know, those of us who are in the space, who are paying attention, there are a lot of exciting things that are happening in the United States that, in the opinion of some, should have happened a long time ago. And if nothing else, I think that it's fantastic that certain orders have been signed and certain steps are being taken, certain initiatives are being achieved that are making people at least curious. I think there has been a lot of resistance to psychedelics in general, specifically myself included. The first 45 years of my life, I was shut down from the idea of psychedelics as a way to explore spiritual growth and or healing and or other things. It's very Western trained, and it took people like Richie and others to help me understand the profound benefits that they could have. I think seeing now what's happening with so many of these initiatives is at least getting the attention of people who might not otherwise be interested. They might not otherwise pay attention. So they're at least asking, like, why is this important? Why are people paying attention to this? How are veterans being saved from PTSD and other things through this plant from Africa? So if nothing else, I think it's incredible because it's starting to get people curious. It's starting to make them ask questions, starting to make them pay attention. And it's giving people an opportunity for healing and for spiritual growth in a way that for the last, throughout history in the United States, quite frankly, hasn't been available. So really exciting for a lot of reasons, in my opinion.
Well, it was, that just happened. Such is life. I don't really have any closing thoughts, but thanks for inviting me.
Hey, Richie, I have something I want to ask you. Can you hear us? We might have lost him. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Can you hear me now? No.
That's fine.
Okay.
Ciao.